Welcome to the Permanent Public Building Committee meeting for March 11th, 2024. This meeting is accessible by Zoom and is being recorded. Under the governor's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, issued March 12th of 2020, and in effect until the termination of the emergency. Meeting of public bodies may be conducted virtually, provided that adequate access is provided to the public. On March 29, 2023, this remote public meeting provision was extended until March 31st of 2025. All votes will be conducted via roll call. With that, the first item for business is the approval of the minutes for February 26th of 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Sure.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, Roy, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. All right, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart? Can you hear
He
me?
said aye, but he was
Oh.
muted.
Okay, great. Okay. And Roy,
Aye.
Irwin, Okay.
Oh.
We lost Irwin. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I guess we'll have to hold that vote for a moment until we restore connection with Irwin. Well, the chair will vote aye anyway. So, but that's not enough for a quorum, I don't believe. So we'll wait on that. All right, we'll hold that in abeyance. And we'll proceed then to the next item, which is the Emery Grover renovation project. And Hank, you'll be subbing for Ken tonight, I understand?
You got it.
Okay, terrific.
Ken is off on a cruise somewhere.
Oh, okay. Actually, I see Irwin is back. Connection has been restored. If we can just, before we take on the Emery Grover project, Irwin, is your vote in favor of the minutes as presented? We lost you there during the vote. Can you hear me? No, guess not.
Can you give a thumbs up?
Irwin, can you hear us? No, can you hear us?
Oh, you see, I cannot hear. That's great.
Oh,
Well, that's going to be a problem. Irwin, can you dial? Well, I was going to say, can we have him dial in? Maybe, or can we contact him to ask him to dial in? Oh, he can't speak.
Let's use the chat. Is there a chat? I don't have access to the chat.
All right, he's going to try again. All right. Well, while we're waiting for Irwin to restore his connection, let's proceed to the Emery Grover project. And Hank, sorry to have interrupted you. Please proceed.
Yes. So the construction is coming along well. The handicap ramp walls and footings, those have been poured. Staging on the east, on the south, and on the north side has been removed, but it still remains on the west side facing Highland Avenue. And that's because there's still some roof work that needs to be completed on the west side of the building. The wall framing inside is substantially complete. So all of the metal studs are up, and the MEP rough-in is ongoing. I'll show you some pictures with that shortly. And the HVA distribution units are all hung from the ceilings. Elevator work is ongoing. I've seen them moving up and down on the platform. So progress is being made there. And sheetrock at the tops of the walls has started, but they're not going to complete that until they get sign off on an individual floor. These pictures show you some of that work in progress that they were distributed. Here you can see some of the distribution units and all of these copper pipes connecting to the various
We don't see anything.
box.
Yeah,
Hank.
Hank, are you displaying the picture?
So that's in the ceiling. The chilled water will come down from the mechanical loft and then feed into this exchanger.
Hank, there's no pictures up on the screen.
We're still seeing your agenda.
Got it.
Okay.
Let me try sharing again.
Erwin, can you hear us now?
Yeah, it's at my end.
Okay.
There.
There we go.
You see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, then what happened? There we go.
Could you start again? What are we looking at?
You're looking at the ceiling. Those are distribution boxes where the coolant and refrigerant comes down from the rooftop and then gets distributed to the VRV
Branch
boxes.
box.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Louis,
it's a branch box. So basically this box that you're seeing here has all your circuits to all the indoor units, and it has basically solenoid valves in there. So all the refrigerant piping gets connected to this box. From here, it goes to all your indoor units. And then depending on which room is calling for heating and cooling, it switches the valves as required. They call it a branch box. Some call it a branch controller, but it's basically the main brain of the refrigerant system as far as distribution.
you can see here one of the sub panels, sub electrical panels. They're pulling the wires starting on the first floor. This is the rooftop. They're still completing out the edge condition where the clock once was, and the associated copper flashing that's up on that roof. And that's why they've left the scaffolding up to that point. Here you can see the platform of the elevator, and they have a lot of the electronics in, and it has been moving up and down, but they're still working in both the elevator machine room and in the shaft with the electrical and other connections. You can see this is in the ceiling, I think, of the first floor with the distribution piping for the sprinklers, for the electrical, for the fire alarm, some of the data, and copper pipe, I believe, is supply water going to the bathrooms, which are on the right-hand side of this picture. Here, they were framing up the entry ramp and stairs on the north side, leading up to the north portico. They have subsequently poured this, and those walls are now in place. And you can see on the ceiling here, one of the VRV boxes, and then the fresh air supply that goes to each of the boxes that would be coming down from the top level as well. And I think that's it. Are there any questions about that?
Hey, how are we doing in terms of, I remember last time Ken mentioned that getting folks on site, given the delay that we encountered, was going to, could potentially be a problem. Any news on that front? Have things stabilized? Or?
No further news. The once they have, well, the IT department made some changes to to their systems. And so we have on order some back boxes. As soon as those arrive and are put in, then the contractor can get the electrical sign off on this floor and with the inspection, and then they'll be able to start sheetrocking the first floor. That should be the only additional holdup. And so we're still looking at probably closer to 3 months delay from the original contract. But we're waiting until really the kickoff point on that will be the inspection, the electrical inspection for that level.
And Hank, what happens on the other floors? I mean, are those like behind? Are they similar in terms of the work being done to allow them to be closed up?
A lot of the electrical work is being done on the other floors. They're focusing first on the first floor, then they'll move to the second floor. Some of that work is already in progress. And then lastly, they'll be moving down to the basement. So and then the third floor, top floor, will be the last in the sequence. And that's the sequence that the contractor wanted to follow.
And so each of those gets an inspection, and then once the inspection is complete, they can close up and start to sheetrock the walls on each floor based on where they are. Is that how it works?
That's correct. And before they sheetrock it in, they'll probably put one side in first, then they have to put sound insulation between the walls. And so all that work needs to get done as well once the electrical inspection is complete. And I guess they'll be also inspecting the rough plumbing on a floor-by-floor basis.
Other questions, comments from the committee?
So the systems work, the heating, the HVAC and other stuff, that proceeds on a floor by floor basis as well, or they complete adding the units on. How does that actually work?
Well, all of the contractors are on the site these days, and there's plenty of work for them to do. It's not as though they're being held up. So for instance, the electrician, while he's waiting for some of those boxes to come in on the first floor, they've moved up to the second floor and they're doing all the fit out there. So it's not as though they leave the site, and they've got quite a bit of work to go before they complete all their rough in. And Barry is looking very closely at all the mechanical and pointing things out as he goes.
Any other questions at this point in the presentation? Okay, hearing none, I guess we can move forward. Hank?
So we have, maybe it's best to go off of Catherine's voting list.
Yep. Okay.
You have that. There's the M. O'Connor requisition number 15, invoice from BH+A and also UTS of Mass.
All right, with that, the chair will move that the previously approved invoice number 15 from M. O'Connor Contracting, requisition number 15 through February of 2024, in the amount of $953,473.05. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
A second, thank you. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll come to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you. The next item is invoice number 26694 from BH Plus A. That's for January 2024 Emery Grover Architectural Services in the amount of $22,161.61. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you. One other item for Emery Grover, and that is invoice number 110558 from UTS of Massachusetts. That's March 2024 materials testing in the amount of $270. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and thank you. And the chair votes aye. Thank you. There's one, I think we might as well take it up now. Hank noted that there are two very, very old public safety project invoices from 2021 and 2020 that need to be resolved. And they are both with respect to American Tower Corporation. Hank can provide any details, but the dollar amounts and years are 2021, $1,512.98, and for 2020, $1,652.93. And in both cases, again, American Tower Corporation. Hank, any comments on that before we move forward?
Only that the police department is picking up current expenses associated with that, but these are dating back a while and need to be cleaned up off the books.
Okay, very good. This will be a vote by the permanent members of the committee, so I'll proceed with the roll call accordingly. Stuart,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, thank you.
Richard,
Yes.
is 4 votes sufficient? So do
Well-
we need 5?
Right, yeah, we considered that, and given the fact that we only have 6 permanent members at the moment, 4 would constitute a quorum.
No, I mean, if this is if this is a project-specific invoice, wouldn't that mean you have the 9-member project-specific committee? And do you need a majority of that?
Hank, any comment on that? Good point, but
Always thought
Good
that the projects, when it comes down to this, it's the numbers within the committee itself. The user group can stand in to be a voting member to get that quorum, but I don't believe we've taken into account in this kind of situation. You take the committee plus the user group. But just my 2 cents.
Well, we have this recorded. I can ask if
Pass legal.
yeah, if we need to revote it and put it on the agenda.
okay.
Okay.
Very good. All right. Anything else with respect to either public safety or Emery Grover before we move on?
Just one final comment to add to it, Hank and Richard. I think that because the project is pretty much over, we haven't had a user group functional. So I don't know how that could increase the numbers anyways.
Well, George, I believe George is going to be joining us. I just see him. With George, we would have a quorum of 5.
Okay, we'll revote it at that point. Okay,
We could revote it, maybe?
Yeah. we'll revote it, yeah. Okay,
Okay, I'm trying to promote him to panelist, so hopefully he can
excellent.
do. Okay, so he's coming in.
Catherine, can you hear me? Hello,
We can hear you, George.
I can hear you now, yes.
you can hear me?
Yeah.
Finally,
You
I
have to
have no
vote on
idea.
something now.
I'm
So
here.
Richard, do you want to repeat the request for the vote?
Yeah, George, I'm going to put forth a renewed motion. This is in regard to there are two outstanding invoices from the Public Safety Project, both with respect to the vendor American Tower Corporation from 2021 and 2020 respectively. And they are, of course, very, very late. And the town finance director has asked that we pass upon them so that they can be processed. So,
What are they for?
um, Hank?
It's for the maintenance charges associated with the lease that we have for that tower. The lease payments are done separately. And
Those are done by the town, right?
those are done by the town, correct? These two, back in 2020 and 2021, the construction was being finished and installation was recent. So the finance director has asked that the project pay for them.
I see. And where have they been for 2 years?
I
Three
I
years?
I think there was some discussions between Ken and the police department as to who was responsible for them. But they can't pay for them out of current FY24 funds. So I think it's appropriate the project pay for them.
But I have a couple of more questions. One is, how much are they for?
The 2021 is $1,512.98, and the 2020 invoice is for $1,652.93.
And are these maintenance invoices going to be coming for other years too?
No,
Were these ever charged through? I mean, were they ever submitted by American Tower before?
I think they may have been lost on somebody's desk between the transition from Hillside over to the, I don't know the origin and the history behind it, George. I can't speak to that.
Well, I'm not really quibbling about the amount. The amount doesn't bother me. It's just the process and what were they for and why have they disappeared and all of a sudden came back?
It came across my desk a week or so ago. It includes West Mechanical, Granite Telecommunications, includes expenses.
These are bills from those companies?
Those are, so American Tower has to pay for all the maintenance associated with the tower, and then they charge on a percentage basis, as I understand it, to the various entities that have equipment on the tower. And then it's subdivided, and it looks like the town is paying 12.5% of these various expenses, which also includes Eversource Energy expenses. So
my question I asked before was, what's to stop them from billing us in another year for additional maintenance? Sounds like an annual maintenance fee.
it is, but we have made it very clear that as soon as the project concludes, well, first of all, that the expenses, all future expenses, need to be charged directly to the police department or fire department and not to PVBC, or not handled by the PVBC, because the project will be closed down.
Okay. So why isn't this, I guess I'm being a little stubborn on a small amount of money, but the process seems like it's still not clear. Why isn't this part of the charge for leasing the tower? And why doesn't that go to the town, which maybe that maintenance comes out of the budget assigned to the police department, but I don't know how they assign the cost of that lease. I don't know who pays for that. Does that just come out of general funds, or is that part of the police department budget?
I believe that as part of the police department budget, they cannot, without going back to town meeting, they cannot pay this bill.
I understand. I understand that part of it, but I'm curious how we're going to prevent that from showing up again for 23 and 22. But
we will ask that question. I believe that they may have already paid those subsequent ones. I'm
okay. Well, I dollar wise, it's a small amount, so I wouldn't be against it. But I'm just a little bit confused about why this shows up all of a sudden, and what's to stop it from showing up again in the future. So those are my only questions.
Okay.
okay.
Points well taken, George. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. If there are no other further comments, I'll reiterate the motion. Motion is that the chair will move that that the invoices from American Tower Corporation for 2021 amount of $1,512.98, and 2020 in the amount of $1,652.93. This is in connection with the public safety project, be approved by the PVC. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Here, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call. This will be of the permanent members only. Stuart,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay. All right. Are we? Is there any other business before the committee with respect to the Emery Grover or public safety projects? Okay.
For me.
Very good. We will then move forward to our next topic item, which is the RTU replacement at Elliott and Broadmeadow.
So I sent out a memo, which we have updates both for Elliott and for Broadmeadow. And let me get this out of the way. The contractor, Enterprise Equipment Corp, has been working on Elliott during February break. They have been installing some equipment inside the boiler room, and they were also taking measurements in the auditorium space there to enable them to get final details done for the steel that will need to be cut through the roof, and creating the platform for the air source heat pumps. And they'll be doing some of that work during the April break, and then coming back and going full bore in the summertime, starting in June, right after school lets out. At the Broadmeadow, the contractor or I should say GGD has been working on the construction documents, and Louis Vieira is here with us this evening. The 75% CDs, plans and specs were sent out to the two cost estimators. Today we received a copy of the second cost estimate from AMF. They're similar, although slightly less than the costs associated with that we were looking at the DD stage. And later this week, we will be going through a cost reconciliation between those two. Generally, we are on budget. Louis, I think you've indicated that you've seen some softening in the pricing on construction bids these days.
Yeah, we've actually had a few projects that have gone out, a couple of roof replacements. We've had an RTU replacement down in Hyannis in the Cape, which is typically a tough location for contractors. Not many of them go down there, but we've had quite a bit of contractors bidding on the project, and several of them have come in on budget or under budget. So we're starting to see the hunger in the contractors looking for work. So it's definitely a good sign for us. We also had an ADA project, ADA upgrade project in Westboro, which also included a lot of electrical and HVAC upgrades and stuff. And that came in quite a bit on the budget, about $1 million on the budget. So, and we had probably about 4 or 5 contractors on that one bidding it. So overall, the market seems to be in our favor as far as bidding. So hopefully it continues, and we can keep seeing more of this.
Well, that's welcome news. In the preliminary cost estimate that we got back from PM&C, we're looking at somewhere around 4 million, 3.9 million for the basic construction, and then the air source heat pump would be an ad alternate, the same way we bid the Elliott project. That would put us in a 4.5, 4.6 cost range. We believe that there'll be sufficient monies within our current budget to cover that and do the air source heat pump. In this instance, we also are looking at putting the air source heat pump on a pad out on the back side of the building, not on the rooftop, which reduces the amount of interior work necessary, as the piping would only go through a storage room, gym storage room. So hopefully all of those factors would lead us to enable the awarding not only of the base contract, but also the ad alternate. Timing wise, we're in the process right now with Hill going through the pre-qualification of the HVAC prime. There were, I think, a total of 9 or 10 submittals that are being reviewed by the pre-qualifications committee. We're anticipating that committee will then come back with their recommendations for the next meeting on the 25th of March for PBBC to approve. Then the bid docs would hit the streets in early April, with the filed sub bids due at the end of April and the GC bids due in early May, which would enable PBBC to award the contract at the meeting on May 20th. So that's our goal for the immediate schedule. And that schedule would also give the contractor a full year to get through the submittal RFI process and then be able to proceed into construction in the summer of 2025. Any questions about that?
Actually, yeah, Hank and Louis, either one of you, one question that arises with the proposal to place the unit in the back of the building rather than on the roof. Does that change the equation in terms of how, in terms of noise generation, that kind of issue? Is that a concern at all? Would that change the ambient noise levels in the generated by the equipment?
I mean, acoustics is always an important subject that we evaluate. So yes, we have acoustic consultants on board that are reviewing the existing sound data from the building in that location, and then taking into account the new chiller. So we will have to probably get back out to the site with the acoustics consultant just to confirm things. But yeah, we definitely are taking that into consideration.
Okay, great.
The good news about that location is that the houses that are closest to the school are actually on Broadmeadow, and the building will act as a buffer to broadcasting any sound in that direction. And the houses that are on the other side of the building are just that much further away.
Questions from the committee? Comments?
I just want to make a comment about that. We're also going to evaluate the noise for the classrooms and the interior of the building. I don't know if that was
clear. Absolutely. Yeah. That's probably the most important factor, because we're close to the building and we know that we have the gym and the auditorium. Probably the auditorium being more important than the gym as far as acoustic goes. But yeah, we'll be taking that into consideration.
Additional questions, comments from the committee? Okay. I guess then, Hank, shall we proceed to the invoices?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. All right, there are a number of invoices for RT replacement. The first item is invoice number 4 for Enterprise Equipment Company. That's requisition number 4 through February of 2024 in the amount of $37,107. And that's for general contractor services. The chair will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, George. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Barry?
aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. The second item is invoice number 122595 for GGD Consulting Engineers for January 2024 Broadmeadow Services in the amount of $43,200 even. And also a second invoice for number 122596, also GGD Consulting Engineers for January 2024 Elliott Services in the amount of $4,698.11. As for designer services, we will take those together for a total of $47,898.11. And the chair will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. And then finally, we have for commissioning services, we have who's I think who's the vendor, Catherine?
NV5.
Sorry, say again?
NV5.
Thank you. Oh, great. Got it. Okay. Okay. For NV5 vendor, we have invoice number 375251. That's for January and February 2024 commissioning services for Elliott in the amount of $1,746.06. It's for miscellaneous work. Also, invoice number 375254 for NV5 in the amount of January, or rather for January and February 2024 commissioning services at Broadmeadow in the amount of $1,612.52 for a total of $3,768.58. We will vote the total, and the chair will so move. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, George. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart,
Aye.
George,
aye,
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
thank you, and chair votes aye. Thank you. And we have one more invoice for RTU replacement, and that's Hill International. That's invoice number 4 for January 2024 in the amount of $1,140, and it's for miscellaneous work. The chair will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Stuart,
Aye.
George,
aye,
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Okay. Any further discussion on the RTU replacement projects before we move to another topic? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to our PBVC other business. Our guests are welcome to stay, but they certainly don't feel obliged to. It's up to you. But we will move forward with the rest of our agenda. Thank you very much.
You guys, if you guys
Thanks-
don't
thanks,
mind,
Louis.
I'm checking out. Take
Okay,
care, guys.
no problem.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Louis. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Louis.
No problem.
Okay. We just have a few items on for other business before the PBC. And the first, I know Irwin has asked to speak on the Town Finance Committee, Community Housing Oversight Committee for an update. He is representing us on that committee, and Irwin, I'll be happy to recognize you for your comments.
Thank you, Richard. A memo was sent out to various boards, including the PVBC. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it, dated March 8th, 2024, to kind of summarize the charge and work done and function of this advisory committee. I'm just going to highlight a few parts of that memo just to give you a sense of what the role is of this oversight committee and specifically with regard to which projects. So the memo is to the select board, which had set up this advisory committee. And the first paragraph, it explains that the function of this committee is to oversee the disbursement of funds appropriated by the town to support the development of community housing by third parties, and also advise boards and committees of the town. The specific projects are Linden Chambers, Seabeds Cook, and High Rock Estates. Then there are 4 bullets under the first paragraph that refers to the committee's charge, and I think the 2 important ones are the third and the fourth. The third one is to meet with the developer's project team to review project status, finance update, schedule, and the like. And as far as I can tell, the Cambridge Housing Authority is, I think, being hired by the Needham Housing Authority to provide some of this work in the pre-development and preliminary design phase. Also, BH+A is doing the preliminary design work. The last bullet in that set is to provide advice to the CPC, Community Preservation Committee, Select Board, Finance Committee, and Town Meeting as to the appropriateness of expenditure of town funds and the advisability of future investment in the project. So we have this fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the funds are being spent appropriately and within the expectations set forth by various annual town meeting articles. I will say there are multiple sets of eyes looking at these disbursements. They include Cheryl Gosman, who's the executive director of the NHA, Cecilia Simchak, who's the assistant finance director, and you have Peter Pingatore from, he's a CPC representative. He's also the vice chair of this committee. And then you have the individual members, of which I am one. And I will note, one of the members is excellent at really going through all the details of any disbursement in the backup material along with it, and that's Rick Zimbone, who's a community at large member. So I think there's good evaluation as to the appropriateness of the disbursements. The memo goes on to explain the work to date, and I'll just quickly summarize or mention the 4 annual town meeting warrant articles that are associated with Community Preservation Act grants. There was an ATM in 2019, 2022, another one in 2022, and the 4th annual town meeting warrant article was in 2023. What I've been trying to kind of wrap my head around is to see if there's a parallel process to what we do here at PBBC. In other words, when we have invoices presented before us, there's a project manager that has already looked at the appropriateness to indicate that the invoice is within the line item of what was budgeted for the project. I have asked that the Needham Housing Authority, whoever is sort of overseeing whatever the Cambridge Housing Authority is doing and what BH+A is doing, that they be present at all our meetings so that we can kind of get that direct acknowledgement that the disbursements are being done appropriately. And we did not have a representative at our last meeting last week, but we were assured that our next meeting, which is April 8th, there will be a representative from the Needham Housing Authority. So that's just a kind of a quick summary of that memo that went out, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have of this oversight committee.
Well, terrific. Erwin, just a general comment. Thank you very much for representing us on the committee. Very much appreciated. When this was first broached by the select board, we were kind of surprised that we were invited into the proceedings, but they made, I think it was made clear to us the really the value that PBC and its representative can bring to the process. So again, thank you very much for your work in this area, and for again introducing the PBC style concepts that are so important, that work so well for us on the town side.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the committee in terms of the Erwin's presentation or the written materials that he provided? Hank.
I had the opportunity to listen into a presentation that they made to the FinCom when FinCom that same evening was reviewing some of the school department budget capital plan items. And I was very impressed by the capabilities of the Cambridge Housing Authority. I think they are in essence functioning as the OPM for them. Mm-hmm. And the importance of the town CPA funds to leverage other funding is quite critical.
Yeah.
And the so both federal and state funding and tax incentive funding, all of that relies on this involvement and skin in the game by the town. So it's far more complicated than any of our financing, that's for sure. And I think Cambridge Housing Authority has been doing this for I think over a decade, as they've been refurbishing the various public housing in Cambridge. And rather than disbanding, I think, a 20+ person group expertise, they are functioning as consultants to other towns.
One
I
of
have
the
a
things,
question.
yeah, go ahead, George, go ahead.
Erwin, are they, in terms of their cost estimating, do they have a professional cost estimator putting this together? How does that all work?
I've only been to, I think 3 meetings, and I think I've seen the Cambridge Housing Authority at one of the meetings. I believe they do, but we haven't gotten into that level of detail. And a lot of the disbursements so far are for preliminary design and pre-development costs. We haven't gotten to anywhere near construction. So I don't
Then
think
that's
the-
being done by BH plus A?
Yeah, BH plus A is working on the preliminary design, and that's where a lot of the initial disbursements required approval for the work that they were doing.
So
So
who's-
it's still kind of at these earlier stages.
So who's in charge of deciding what BH plus A's scope of work is going to be? Because as you know, every project's scope of work is what decides what the amount of money is that needs to be raised at the end. And if you don't have a tight rein on the design concepts up front, then whatever the architect comes up with, you're gonna have to raise funds for. And so you kind of need to manage that process. And I'm wondering who's managing that process with the architect so that we have a preliminary estimate up front and we stick to that estimate, and there's some measure of control of all of that information as you proceed through the project. I guess
That relates to my request at the last meeting that there be people there to explain that.
Yep.
I think the Cambridge Housing Authority, as Hank had said, is kind of the OPM. So I think they're looking at what VH plus A is doing. But I saw that Hank had his hand up. So
Yes.
Hank, you want to add to that?
Yeah, BH plus A does have a cost estimator. I don't know if there's a second cost estimator that Cambridge Housing Authority employs the way we would have a separate cost estimator as the OPM. I have had the opportunity to have coffee with Reg, and he's been sharing things. I've been trying to assist them as they're going through the permitting process. And also there will be a warrant article for change in zoning associated with that project at Maytown meeting. George, I know that they did do several modifications to the original design, that the project will be constructed in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be, well, it's in the area that overlooks the fields at the High Rock School.
Mhm.
And the side that is there'll be a fairly large building, and they do need to go up to 3 full floors plus the attic space, which has some housing units in it. They have looked at geothermal. They've come to the conclusion that they can't afford that. So they did go through pricing associated with that question. They will be constructing, as I say, in 2 phases in a sequence that will affect a minority. I think only 7 units, existing units, need to be torn down in order to construct phase 1. And phase 1 will include the core elevators, which are in the middle of the building, once they complete phase one, they'll be able to relocate the balance of the occupants that are now in the buildings associated with phase two into phase one, and then construct the second half of that building. There's also something about funding associated with Seabed's Cook refurbishments, and I don't quite understand that. Maybe you do, Erwin, that by working on that first and doing energy upgrades there, it frees up, I think it's other federal housing loans that they can gain access to. But all I remember from the presentation was that the financing is very complicated.
Yeah, I would emphasize very complicated.
And I don't dare understand it.
It's interesting that they believe they can't afford geothermal. Did someone do a study on that?
Yes, they, I think, also have done some test borings on the site. And part of the question originally was whether they could do some lateral borings underneath the field in order to get sufficient capacity to serve the entire building.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that they can get all of the well fields that they need to drill on their existing site, because they do have wetlands that are on the back side of that.
Right.
And they can't put the wells within the wetlands.
Hmm.
So I think it's both a geometry issue, but also a cost issue. And unless they can get some of those sort of more experimental funding, like what Framingham has done, Reg Foster asked whether the town was considering transitioning the High Rock School to geothermal. And I said, well, that's a ways away. We can't count on combining the two. So there are just a lot of complexities, George, and nor were they, I don't think the town is prepared to allow them to do those drill holes in the street, in the right of way. It just gets very complex.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I thought Reg approached me about it a while ago too, Hank, and I had kind of the same conversation with him that, we're not really in a position, if the timing were different, you might want to look at it, but we're not really at the point where we're looking at what we need to do differently at High Rock, and just the complexities of going across rights of way seemed like a lot to try to overcome. I mean, I love the idea, the concept, but it just seemed like the timing didn't fit to take a serious look at it. At least that was my impression.
Have they looked at solar as well?
Because they're going up to 4 floors, well, they are doing air source heat pumps in the current design. They'll be meeting the specialized energy code with a very efficient envelope. When they do that and they're not putting any fossil fuel combustion within the building, they're not required to have solar. I think that the roofs will be solar ready, but in order to keep the profile down and still get that added layer of occupancy, they do have to put dormers on the roof, and that constrains the amount of rooftop that's that could accommodate solar. I know that they have also looked at putting solar canopies over the parking lot, but the parking requirements for that use are actually relatively small, and so they don't have a lot of parking lot area, and they're two fairly large green areas within their current design on either end of the building, but they're using those as in large part for their infiltration chambers and all the runoff associated with both rooftop and other paved areas. So their site is very, very tight as is. And I'd have to go back and ask Reg what their capacity would be for solar.
Okay.
Any other questions for Erwin or Hank before we move on to our next topic? Okay, well, Erwin, again, thank you very much for representing us, and please keep us posted on developments.
You're welcome, and I will.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, just a couple other items of note. The appointing authority has scheduled an interview for a candidate, the one candidate that we are aware of for the vacancy on the committee. And that will be on March 18th. April 24th, just a reminder, we will be meeting at Town Hall. Be good to see everyone in person in 3 dimensions for a change, and without any technological issues, which we've unfortunately been saddled with the past couple of sessions. Let's see, and then in terms of town meeting, Hank, I thought it might be a good idea we start thinking about articles that pertain to this committee, and we might want to think about thumbnail items that we might want to include in those in any kind of remarks we might be called upon to make. So maybe you and I can work on that in the coming weeks.
Yes, I'm working on FAQs for the Pollard project with the school department, and Karis Lustig is beginning to put together an FAQ sheet for the DPW project.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I just heard was that they apparently out of cash, they're anticipating in the special town meeting that is within annual town meeting, they're anticipating funding not only for the theater SAC2 construction, but also the Newman, the design funding for the Newman theater system upgrades. And so I'm beginning to look at those two budgets. And there'll also be a warrant article for the phase 1 of the library improvements. And that'll be for the design services. And I'm getting more detailed proposals from each of the design teams associated with those projects. We won't, as you know, with the MSBA, we won't know who the designer is until we go through the eligibility period, then get invited into the next phase, which is the selection of the design team and the OPM.
That's not going to happen until after town meeting, of course.
No. However, at town meeting, the school department is trying to accelerate the eligibility period. So we are working with them and also with building maintenance to prepare answers to all of the questions. I think I shared with the committee 2 meetings ago, all those required submittals during the eligibility period.
Right.
And so we are working on drafts of those. We won't be able to actually upload the information until after May 1st. But our goal is to have the education programming information completed and the building maintenance and capital planning information completed. So on the week after May 1st, we could begin uploading all that information. And while it is taking it a little bit out of sequence by getting the approval for the funding, feasibility funding from May town meeting, as is currently proposed, it would allow the town to jumpstart and get into the next phase.
Has there been any discussion with MSBA about accelerating the project?
The first step is to accelerate and get accepted post eligibility into the next stage. And then we get into the real discussions with them as to how rapidly we can move forward. I'd have to pull up my schedule, but it will take us, because we have to go through all of the board meetings and the selection committee meetings with the MSBA, we're not moving alone in the process. We're working with them. And so we are working pretty much with their schedule. And we're beginning to look at what their meeting dates are, and their submission for most of those dates, particularly for the board, is 2 months prior to the meeting. So we hurry up and we submit, and then we wait before we're allowed to move on to the next stage.
I think, Hank, you had a couple of items that you wanted to bring to the committee's attention.
Yes, I did send around an email request by town manager to fill out a questionnaire. A questionnaire was regarding committee member orientation. I don't know if you all recall what orientations you went through when you first joined the committee, or if you want to go through them again. But,
I think I've given a lot of them.
So I can resend that, but that email was forwarded maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. Then there was another request from town manager. Once the Climate Action Plan Committee completes their work, which is imminent with the acceptance of the Climate Action Plan, then that committee gets reconstituted into a more permanent Climate Action Committee. And similar to the Housing Committee that Erwin was sitting on, the Select Board is asking that there be a PPPC member on that committee. And so names don't need to be submitted right now, but if any of you are interested in that and representing the PPPC, they will be looking for somebody to join that committee. And I'm not exactly sure the timing on that, but it's likely to come after May town meeting. They'll begin forming it.
Okay, terrific. Any comments from the committee? Anything else before we adjourn?
So just a
George?
question, Hank. Are we supposed to, I'm one of those delinquents that hasn't filled out that form or responded to your survey. You want us to do that?
Yes, if you could. I think it's still live.
Yeah.
And if you need me to resend it, I can do so.
No, I'm sure I've got it. I remember
It'd be
seeing
good
it
for
and
you to
ignoring
send
it.
it. I would send it out again.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful. As I said, I remember seeing it and ignoring it.
I'll get it to the top of your email pile.
It's a very short questionnaire, maybe 4 questions, and you'll go through it very quickly. So we've already done it.
Is the intent of that to have each committee have an orientation process? Is that what it is?
I think each committee has a slightly different orientation process.
Yeah, I got the impression, Hank, that this is really kind of more of a global kind of approach to, okay, what is the open meeting law? How does it work? The kinds of considerations that we're confronted with from an administrative perspective in terms of how we run our meetings and so forth. And it's kind of an opportunity to kind of educate everyone or re-educate everyone as to what the obligations and requirements are. And I think beyond that, I think anything committee specific would be dealt with at the committee level. That's my guess.
Yeah, in terms of orientation, I think the last 3 additions to the PBBC, I think I spent time with each of the members going through what the committee was all about, what our procedures were, how we act, how we do projects, all of the activities of the group, and answered any questions they had. So it's kind of an informal, but it took a couple of hours to do that.
Yes, and we have put together briefing documents for new select board members. It includes the chapter from the town bylaws, what is the committee, how is it constituted, what our recent projects are, what our history on projects is. And so we would probably start off with that as a package to any new committee member. And then George, the discussion you had with others is very helpful as well. And whether you do that or Richard or I would certainly be able to participate as well.
Right. Anyway, I'm available to help doing that if you need me.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it. All right. If there are no other committee comments, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Anyone wish to adjourn?
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, thank you. All right, roll call vote. Stuart,
Aye.
George,
aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much, all. Appreciate the time and attention tonight. Take care. We'll see you soon. Thanks again.
So long.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good night.
Right.